So Randy Pitchford just revealed some interesting new information on a new currency coming to Borderlands 4. So in the most recent Borderlands 4 trailer, a lot of the enemies that were defeated in this trailer were dropping an item that kind of looked like an armor plate, so most people were thinking that it was a shield booster. You defeat an enemy that can drop these shield boosters that are automatically picked up and regen a big chunk of your shield. But it seems that that is not correct and that this is actually a new currency coming to Borderlands 4. And Randy Pitchford was asked about this on Twitter, and he answered that you think purple is powerful, you should try orange. Iridium is cool, but have you fucked with Ordinite? And he was replying to a tweet that had images of these items dropping, so he is just directly confirming that these items dropping that everybody thought were shield boosters are actually a new currency called Ordinite. Now, what's really interesting with these is not only that it's a completely new currency, because we've had a bunch of other currencies in Borderlands games, and something else that's interesting is it has what seems to be the exact same legendary beam as normal legendary items. And that's a bit interesting because if you go back to, say, Borderlands 3, Iridium does seem to have a bit of a lesser purple beam than normal purple items dropping. But even just the fact that they're deciding to make this new currency a legendary rarity is already pretty interesting in itself, because a lot of the previous Borderlands games, those kind of secondary currencies have usually not been legendary rarity. And I think the most apt thing to compare to is just the Iridium from Borderlands 3, which was purple rarity. And I think there's two main probable things that could happen with this new currency. Either it could just be a direct replacement for Iridium from Borderlands 3. Hopefully there's a lot more options at the launch of the game if that's the case, because in Borderlands 3, Iridium was pretty much only used to buy cosmetics, because it was no longer used for purchasing SDU upgrades. You could use it on the Fabricator gun, but that really wasn't that worthwhile to use. So it's primarily just for cosmetics, and then it had no uses. They did add other things to use it on later down the road, especially the re-rolling of anointments. So that's option one. It's just a replacement for Iridium, and hopefully if that's the case, there's a lot more things to use it on than the launch of Borderlands 3. The second option is that this is a new currency on top of everything else we would be getting. Iridium is kind of iffy on if it would even be on this planet, but the reason I say there's a possibility that this is another currency on top of things we would normally be getting is because of its legendary rarity. Why would they have it as a higher rarity when normally they have the things sitting at that purple or epic rarity? It makes more sense to kind of keep them in the same rarity tier if it's just going to be the replacement for Iridium on this different planet. Now, if it's another currency on top of the other things we would be getting like Iridium, this could be something really interesting, because if they're adding this new currency, it has to be used for something. And one of my big hopes for the Borderlands franchise is just that they added more ways to customize or modify the gear you're actually getting in the game, outside of just having something like anointments and being able to re-roll them. I think being able to modify your weapons or drops after you get them to try to make them a bit more of what you want or make them a bit better for your playstyle is something I definitely want for the franchise, and having this other legendary currency could potentially be that. There's also 1,000 other things it could be for. And this could also be interesting when you combine it with the information I went over in my last video, which is that we have now seen two different versions of legendary items or orange rarity items. In the newest trailer, we got a legendary item that was just a normal legendary beam, but our previous trailer, we get to see a bunch of legendary items that have a rainbow effect around them with like a helix animation going up through their beam, which also seemed to be a rainbow helix. It was a bit harder to tell on that, but this is seeming to show that there are different versions of legendary items, potentially just being something like anointments, hopefully a much more interesting version of anointments. Adding this new currency could also potentially be tied to those different items. Now, another really interesting possibility with this, and this is more of a lore tie-in, is that there is a possibility that these different currencies are tied to different vaults on these different planets. So if you go back to pretty much all the other Borderlands games, all of the vaults are powered by Iridium. They have some amount of purple on them, or the kind of barrier you go through is purple, and they're powered by Iridium. But if you go and look at the full reveal trailer for Borderlands 4, at the very end of that trailer, we see the timekeeper floating in front of a vault, but that vault is glowing orange, which is obviously the rarity they're using for Ordinite. So that is also another possibility, that Ordinite is powering the vault on this new planet we're on, while Iridium is powering the vault of these other planets. And if that also ends up being the case, that could also be the reason they made this new currency a legendary rarity, because they kind of made Iridium a purple rarity because it's purple. So they could just be doing that again, and it's just a replacement for Iridium for this planet. But also looking past that, just the possibility that all the other planets we were on, those vaults were powered by Iridium, this new vault or these new vaults are powered by this new Ordinite. This also just opens up the universe of Borderlands for having just tons of additional vaults throughout the galaxy and on all of these different planets that are powered by all of these different currencies or different kind of elements that you find on the planet. Or I guess more specifically, that opening up these vaults kind of spawns all of this element on the planet, depending on which way they actually want to go about that. And that's just really interesting from a lore and world building perspective, especially if we ever get the Borderlands MMO, which I kind of went over in one of my previous videos. Because if we ever got a Borderlands MMO that was, a full live service MMO, that we would probably be traveling to a lot more planets and they would be opening up the universe of Borderlands a lot more. Having the ability to just have more vaults on a different planet, like somewhere out in the galaxy, and have it just have a different currency, a different colored currency that is how those vaults are powered, could just open up the lore a lot, but just opens up the possibility of gameplay for future games or a future MMO. And when talking about currencies, this does also open up questions on how Elpis is going to play into this as well, because obviously the moon is there. It's seeming like we're able to actually go back to Elpis in Borderlands 4, so not actually sure how this moon and this new planet is going to play together, and if there's maybe going to be different currencies between the two, or are these different elements that we use as currencies going to interact in some weird way. Maybe there's going to be something with that, but there is quite a lot of possibilities, and it is quite interesting that we are getting this new orange currency. But that's all I want to go over, so thanks for watching.